the three of us were top 3 for search engine optimization in the UK, just because three SEOs linked to each other. Actually, David, my business partner, just posted something on Jill Whalen's forums about SEO is dead. So 1999, we were posting about SEO is dead. I needed to try and avoid too much scandal along the way. So yeah, I was very conscious of the fact that very early on, this thing could ruin reputations if you got it wrong. I don't like rules, really. I don't like other people's rules. I accept I have to do them. I haven't been to jail, thankfully.
Hello and welcome to SEO Pioneers. And my pioneer today is Dixon Jones, who's probably best known as the ambassador and MD for Majestic link intelligence tool, which he was for many years. He's currently the CEO of Inlinks, and what Dixon doesn't know about knowledge graph and entity SEO isn't worth knowing. So I'm very much looking forward to having a chat to Dixon to find out where it all began and getting his backstory. So Dixon, hi, it's really nice to have you here.
No, thank you ever so much for inviting me. I've been seeing the videos coming along, and they're really exciting, and all my friends are on it. I wanted to be there.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. So I believe that you left university around 88, 89, and you were running the Students' Union at that time with about 100 staff, is that right? And you set up a murder mystery business.
Yeah, that's kind of how I learned about SEO, really. Well, no, this was way before. So 88, 89. Yeah, I was writing murder mystery evenings where every guest at a dinner party is a character in a murder mystery. So I was and they were very interactive. I could do them with less actors if they were interactive. So everyone was a character, and I could have the murderer as one of the guests and stuff. And then I gave them all money and props and stuff like that. And over the course of dinner, they were trying to work everything out, but they were also trying to, they were also trying to make money or try to do other objectives and things as well. So it's kind of role playing for the non geeks.
So how did you think that the murder mystery business could benefit from being online? I mean, back in 95, obviously it was very early days. What was the jump there?
So I think what happened as the internet started coming out, somebody tried to sell me murdermystery.com, and out of the blue, and I didn't even have a website, but I kind of then realized that that's what I might need to do. I then did some analysis and decided that actually people weren't looking for murder mysteries. They were looking for murder mystery games, and that was much more targeted for my audience. So I should perhaps get murdermysterygames.co.uk, because I hadn't really realized about the .com, and realized I could get that for $5. And so I thought, well, why am I going to spend lots of money on this murdermystery.com when I can get the actual phrase that people are typing in? And then I just went to the only thing I did right was, instead of getting a hosting company like everybody else at GoDaddy or whatever, or it's probably before GoDaddy, I went for an ISP where I could see the building. So when I drove from the office back home, there was this building that was an ISP, and I thought, you know what, if it goes belly up, I want to be able to knock on the door and get my data. So I didn't quite know how I understood how it all worked, but I thought, I want to be able to go in there and get my hard drive so I can get my games back and my stuff back. So so that's why I went for that one. And they had every Thursday a log analysis program that came out that updated every Thursday, and it went through the logs and it showed you, where people were coming to your website and stuff. It's kind of like Google Analytics pre any of that stuff. And so I could then live for this Thursday update where I could see that, I'd done some changes, and now I had a visitor from Ohio, and I thought, my God, I can't get my actors to Ohio. So that's when I just built a whole, the whole idea of, well, instead of having a game where we're running as actors, can I maybe do a download for everybody that isn't in the UK? and I didn't have much cash, and I didn't have a way to turn a file into a PDF file because that had to cost lots of money. So the only way I could create this file was a 70-page TIFF file, which on a 28K modem takes an awful long time to download. Maybe we got to 56K, but basically I said, send me a check and I'll send you a password for this 70-page TIFF file. And people started sending checks. So that was my start of my internet empire. Was getting people to pay £30 or £40 for a 70-page TIFF file.
Wow, that's got to be up there with the guy that sold like 1 million pixels for £1 million. That's quite impressive sales.
If only it had been 1 million, £30 a time, you know. And at its height, I was selling 20 of those a day, I suppose. But you know,
Wow.
I had gone away from TIFF files by then. I mean, I had got myself to a PDF file, and automated it so you can actually just buy it. You know, the first times around, I had to pretty much the check had to come through in the post, literally from America, and it came in US dollars. And I thought, well, I'm not going to get much cash in that. So there was some issues with my early days, I would say, but it made me understand, you know, just those Thursday files that you had to understand what the user's head was, because if you just got them to your website and they weren't interested in the product you had, then you were going to go wrong. If you know, if you can't get your actors to Ohio, then you need to adapt. And then that was a very quick jump when I started seeing the search terms that people were searching for into SEO. And back then, of course, there were 50 different search engines to play with and a million different opportunities to do things. But I wasn't that clever. I was using, well, I tried with Front Page 95, but I couldn't get that to work. I never managed to get Front Page 97. I just about managed to get to work, but it didn't really work until Front Page 98, I think. But yeah, those early days of just building a website were tough.
So is it maths at university?
Maths and management studies. My first degree was maths and management, and my maths it was quite poor. I was a 4-year course, so after about 2 years, I kind of started to struggle with the maths, but the management I was okay with. So SEO was perfect for me, really.
But had you done any coding prior to setting up the murder mystery?
Well, yes and no. So my first computer was an Apple II. Actually, it wasn't an Apple II. It was a clone of an Apple II. I used to live in Hong Kong, and you could buy knockoff Apple IIs even back in the 80s. And so I did remember when I was 18 writing a sort of a ping pong table tennis game on an Apple II. At uni, there's a little bit of programming COBOL. But let's be honest, I'm not a coder. I'm way off a coder, which is why I needed Front Page. You know, there were those that could make HTML with Notepad editors, and those that needed Dreamweaver or Front Page. And I was of the latter category. I mean, my Notepad programming days were very short lived. I thought that's not going to be my game. So bad coder. You know.
But I was just trying to make the connection, because obviously in 95, you know, it was the web, particularly in the UK, was very, well, it just wasn't as it was today. It was very niche. Let's just say it was very niche. And
I think it's fair,
so obviously to make that jump to actually establishing a website is quite a big jump at that time. Was there anything that indicated to you that the internet was going to be so important that you thought it was a good move?
He was hitting me in the face, really. But I think what really hit me most is once Front Page had come out, and it could have been Dreamweaver. I was also using HTML Hotdog or something. There was other sort of HTML editors as well. But Front Page was the first WYSIWYG one that I really could get my head around, even though the first version of it didn't work on my poor computer. But what I realized is just how bad the business models were for the search engines at the time. So I was using Yahoo, say, and yeah, particularly Yahoo, actually, because that was a market leader right at the time. And when I got my website up, I typed in murder mystery games into Yahoo, and there were a bunch of results. Mine wasn't there. But more importantly, there was a banner ad for Adidas at the top. And I thought, this is crazy. The user that is clearly looking for, murder mysteries, and the advert is for Adidas. That's their only business model at Yahoo. So clearly the money is in that detail of those results, because that's exactly where every user is going to click. So that was a very quick leap to they've got the search engines have got the business model wrong. The engineers could go in here, and the engineers aren't thinking about marketing; they're thinking about relevancy. So there's a huge gap for a consultant here that can try and understand and re-engineer this algorithm, which I later learned was getting called search engine optimization. But at the time, I hadn't heard the phrase. I just thought immediately, what is this methodology here, and how can I manipulate it? And then starting to change your website around and seeing over time on most of the search engines, not all of them, things change. Some of them were quick, but most of them were, took some time to update your stuff. But that was great. And then, yeah, so as soon as I did that, and I got lots of people coming to my website, even though it was slow and there weren't that many people, I could see how that was going to grow very, very quickly. So there's only so much money you can make running murder mystery evenings for a living. So it was time to move on. It managed to pay for my honeymoon. And also I met my wife at a murder mystery, but then I had to move up and, grow up a little bit. And the internet seemed to be a really good opportunity for going to the next level. And I could take my murder mystery company, make an online version of it, a dedicated online version. So you just downloaded and you didn't worry about actors and all the other bits and pieces. And that was where I kind of learned the basics. And then my wife got another job working for Mohammed Al Fayed, actually. She was working for a block of apartments in Park Lane, sort of short-term lets. And I found myself sort of going to their Christmas do, and shortly before that, talking to her manager about this search engine optimization thing. They just got a new website, and they'd use frames and done all these sorts of things that were bad for SEO at the time. And an hour before the Christmas party, I'd got my first customer, really. So that was it.
That was the Park Lane apartments, not Harrods, obviously.
Yeah, not Harrods, not Harrods. I did do a couple of things talking with Harrods Estates and a few other bits and pieces, but yeah, doing things for the apartments was the first main customer for me, which was nice. Yeah.
So had you actually intended to pursue that path, or did it just kind of come to you?
I hadn't quite got it right at the start, so I kind of knew that the internet was my thing. And then I set up this company. So I got a thing called Receptional. I bought Receptional.com, and which I no longer have any connection with whatsoever, except I was the founder. But when I originally used the phrase, I was thinking about setting up a virtual call center, where mums and people that were at home with kids or whatever could use there was a telephone. BT had this telephone system that allowed you within a certain area to use different a sort of a virtual telephone network. And I kind of thought that was really good for a business idea where you could have people basically working from home, earning money, and if we could just find a way to coordinate all the bits and pieces, then you could have virtual call centers basically running from anywhere in England or Ireland or in the UK. So that was my original idea for how I was going to use the internet, and so I was going to create this business. And frankly, that's really boring. A virtual call center is, well, I'm glad I didn't, because of course, other countries are much more cost effective at setting up virtual call centers, and also a lot more adept at technology than me. So that kind of was the original idea, and that's where my agency name came from. And I was still at a loss, and I was thinking of becoming a teacher, actually, because I kind of pulled back from the murder mystery company, the actors part of the murder mystery company, still running it was definitely running the online PDF downloads. But then I thought, maybe I'll become a teacher. And I went to this 2-day course on becoming a teacher, because they wanted maths teachers especially. And the ladies there that were running it said, yeah, of course, sometimes you come away from work in tears because you've had such a terrible day and stuff like that, and that's just part of it, and I thought, there's no but. I don't need to I don't need to come away from here and cry. And so coffee on the first morning, I met this guy David, who was an ex-lecturer at Cranfield University, and he was also, at a loss, and he hadn't quite figured out what he was going to do with the rest of his life. I had kind of got Hyper Residence as a customer. I'd also got a lead from a major car company, a big brand, and what they wanted me to do is to look at every other car manufacturer's website and look at the price changes and all the changes on their websites and things, which are a bit off the wall, but good money. So coffee on the first morning, I was chatting to him, and we went into business together. That's how Receptional turned into a proper business. Before, it was an idea for a virtual call center, but by the time I'd met David, we went into search engine optimization.
How long did you do Receptional for?
So that went limited in 1999. Yeah. And I don't know when I physically was completely out, but in my head, everything was 10-year trances. So by 2009, I was marketing director of Majestic, but I still hadn't quite completely got out of Receptional, but I wasn't running it. And then 2000, 10 years later after that, I kind of moved sideways from Majestic, and now I'm on my third decade of third or fourth decade of business ideas, I suppose. So 1999 to around about 2008-9, I was really Receptional primarily, although around about 2007 Majestic became a client of Receptional's, and that very quickly moved into a whole different relationship.
Do you think, because you did management was part of your uni course, and then obviously you were running the Students' Union, and then you set up your murder mystery business, and then Receptional. Do you think you're predominantly driven by entrepreneurism rather than as much for passion for the internet? Do you think it's just about actually having businesses?
I very much wanted to always be. When I was a kid, when I was 8. I remember being at a party, you're a kid, and the parents are all at the party, and you think, oh, I'm the only kid at this party. And so somebody said, what do you want to do when you grow up, young man? And I said, manager. And they said, well, manager of what? And I said, I don't think that's relevant. I may not have used the word relevant, but I said, that doesn't matter. It's not important what I'm a manager of. I want to be a manager. So yes, I would say entrepreneurialism. When I was at school, and the 3x3 Rubik's Cube came out, I kind of thought about how it was made, then broke it apart and realized it was made differently, and then thought, the way I think it was made, you can make a 4x4. So then went out to try and find the forms for a 4x4 Rubik's Cube patent. I couldn't understand the forms, so I never got that far. But anyway, so yeah, I always wanted to, I think, run my own business, because I felt that the only way I can get myself a freedom, I think, is working for yourself. I didn't like the idea particularly of, I don't like rules, really. I don't like other people's rules. I accept I have to do them. I haven't been to jail, thankfully. I'm scared of, I'm scared of the taxman. I'm scared of the of a policeman waving me down in the middle of the road. I'm scared to death of everything. But I don't have to go and live in rules that if I don't have to live by somebody else's rules, then I'd rather avoid it. So I'd rather work for myself. So I never really wanted to be running a company on the NASDAQ or anything. I just wanted to be running my own, in control of my own life. So yeah, entrepreneurialism was the heart of it. But the internet gave you scale, it gave the opportunity for scale that you don't have if you're running a corner shop.
Yeah, I relate to what you're saying 100%. I always had the same feeling myself about having my own freedom. Very important. So it's, what is it, 95, and you've just Receptional's just gone limited.
No, Receptional didn't go limited till 1999. So
sorry,
I learned
95. Excuse me, 95,
the murder mystery game stuff. I started in. I would say it only started really in 1997, because I know I was using Front Page 97, and I could get somewhere with that. And then 1999 it became a proper company. But we still then, when we became a proper company, we still had to pay by the minute for the internet in the UK, which was really annoying. So we started from a front bedroom. I employed a guy, so me, David, and Stephen. It was my first employee. We were still in my front bedroom. That must have been that. Well, that was. I remember my daughter getting born on 7th of January 2000. So, and changing a nappy on the dining room table. So we were well going by 1999. But as soon as my daughter arrived, I realized that I actually, I had a different job in life, and I couldn't be playing around with murder mystery games anymore to earn proper money. So I'd already got there. But yeah, it didn't really take off for me till 1999. As an SEO professional. Before that, I was doing SEO as getting murder mystery games running and making money on the initial .com boom that way, if you like.
So it's 1995, Reception. Sorry, I've just said it again. It's 1999, Dixon, and Receptional is a limited company.
Yes.
So how did you start to connect with, in the industry, other SEOs?
So I think I saw you talking with Brett. I was PubCon 1. I think I can't remember if I was at PubCon 1 or whether I was at the PubCon 1 that Brett was at. But I certainly do remember the PubCon that was with the second one at the City of York, but the first one that people mostly remember. And that was a pretty powerful event. So I'd already by this stage got to Webmaster World, which means that we've already gone through several years of being on Gym Tools and Gym World and stuff. So I kind of got a lot of my stuff on Gym World, and our Creator site was out there as well. But by the time we got to 1999, Webmaster World I think was in existence, and I was kind of getting engaged in Webmaster World, and then but the first proper one I went to was, I think, that PubCon. No, there was a search engine strategies before that. I spoke at a search engine strategies with Danny Sullivan. And the interesting thing about that, it was in a hotel in London, and I think Sergey was sitting in the corner of the bar at that particular one, I think, but it's probably just my imagination. But I went in there and I remember thinking Danny Sullivan was the big cheese in the SEO industry, the biggest cheese I'd met so far. And I was clearly not the only one that was sucking up to Danny Sullivan. And looking back, I remember this guy sitting in the corner in the bar, just looking around at the world, and I'm pretty sure it was Sergey. But we'll see. We'll never know. Yeah, there was Search Engine Strategies and PubCon, both of those in London. And they really kind of kicked off this whole idea of networking and finding so many other people that were involved in SEO. And at that one, I just posted something on. Actually, David, my business partner, just posted something on Jill Whalen's forums about SEO is dead. So 1999, we were posting about SEO is dead. And of course, he was doing it for clickbait.
Yeah.
And it got such a venomous reaction from SEOs. And I remember Barry Lloyd coming in and defending me. I didn't really know Barry Lloyd at all, but we'd kind of talked about a few things on other threads, and he defended Receptional. And at the time, it was interesting. So we got into the and Mark Garwell from Web Placing. Well, it wasn't Web Placing then. Yeah, it was Web Placing then. We kind of got together at this PubCon, and this thing called Google had just come out. And we'd already got the idea that Ink2Me was using links as well. So we talked about the idea of linking to each other as three SEOs and linking to each other. And for quite some time, the three of us were top three for search engine optimization in the UK, just because three SEOs linked to each other, which was pretty good, really. So that's when the power of networking and also the start of links was important. And then, of course, I went to Orlando and everything took off.
How did you get the first speaking gig at SES?
So I just applied. I just sent an email to Danny and said, "You're coming over to the UK, and I'd like to talk. And I got to talk, and I can't remember whether PPC had come out at that time. I know I definitely did talk at an SES on PPC, and I'm not a PPC expert, but back then, it was quite a big thing. But I remember pitching. So I definitely talked about PPC, and it may have been because of GoTo, or Overture as it later became, because I remember that one of the first websites I pitched to do SEO for was Figleaves, who are an underwear company. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of pitched, and they were nearby. I was living in, this was quite a while back because I was still living in Mill Hill, I think. But went to pitch, and they were in a warehouse, and they were kind of really proud of their .com, boom kind of approach. And I talked about SEO. I thought I did a really good pitch, and they sounded like they really liked it. And I thought, yes, I've got it. I've got my first real customer, because obviously the first customer is my wife's my wife's boss. And then I found that they gave it to Spannerworks, which really pissed me off. So this company in Brighton had got the job. Probably because they were a proper company and I was just muggins. So, but definitely FreeServe had started to take on using GoTo, which was a pay-per-click system where basically instead of having a regular thing, you could buy the top results. So I bought womensunderwear.net, and I did 100% frame because iframes didn't exist at the time, and framed Figleaves website, paid 5 pence a click to be #1 for the phrase women's underwear. And I sent them an email saying, I understand you went with Spannerworks. Well, I didn't say, well, thanks for not telling me. But anyway, I said, but anyway, since you've done that, I've got you #1 on FreeServe, which was the biggest ISP at the time. How's Spannerworks doing? And which probably wasn't very professional, but they were there, and they emailed back saying, have you ever heard of affiliate marketing? So I became Figleaves, one of Figleaves' top 5 affiliates for the next 5 or 10 years. And I can, that was that really. So yeah, I didn't realize that I was one of their top affiliates, but yeah, 100% frame for womensunderwear.net. We kind of got a little bit more sophisticated later on, but not much. So it was kind of blue collar cloaking.
Well, I'm absolutely amazed. I think if I'd have been Figleaves, I would have been on the phone to Spannerworks and sacked them, and I'd have had you in the door very quickly.
Well, but at the time, I mean, there were some bright people at Spannerworks. Certainly, I'm sorry I'm sure there are bright people at Spannerworks now, but back in the day, I was just one guy, and who knew if what I was saying was right or wrong, really. But I did know how to get you to #1, position on FreeServe, and it involved PPC. So that's how I got to talk at Search Engine Strategies, I think.
So did you actively sort of target building your name and your brand in the industry? Is that something you went after, or was it just
Yeah, so one thing that
networking?
I did that was different to most people, particularly on Webmaster World, the early days of Webmaster World, everybody was going in under a pseudonym, and I and the way that Brett's terms and conditions were set up, you weren't allowed to go and advertise on Webmaster World at all. But Receptional didn't sound like a very advertising kind of word, so I just signed up with my handle being Receptional, and that immediately made it completely obvious who I was, really. So firstly, they didn't ban me going in, which was just lucky, I suppose. But secondly, it meant that I couldn't hide behind a handle, really. So I was always very obvious. It was always very obvious who I was, and I could see that the more you went down that route, the more you couldn't talk about a lot of the black hat things that were going on. You had to keep your reputation. If I was going to go from whatever age I was then to now and not be killed, then I needed to try and avoid too much scandal along the way. So yeah, I was very conscious of the fact that very early on this thing could ruin reputations if you got it wrong. And having made the positive decision to use my handle as my brand, I realized that dictated a lot of my choices along the way.
Were you a moderator at Webmaster World?
I was, yeah, I wasn't initially, and then I wanted to become a moderator for sure, because the power of being a moderator was just exciting, and I could see that the MSN forum within Webmaster World was dusky, and no one wanted to be in it. So first I went into the analytics forum, because at the time I kind of knew analytics. I wouldn't say I know any analytics now, really. I completely distrust it. But then this MSN forum was dusty and no one was in there, and I thought, I'll apply to be the admin for that, moderator for that, which was great because that was just as Microsoft woke up and decided that they really wanted to go into the search world, and so I got an awful lot of. I remember getting a laptop from Microsoft, not directly because of that, but I definitely got some dinners in Las Vegas when I was going to PubCons in Vegas with with Microsoft as they were trying to work out the industry and stuff, and so they were trying to make MSN a proper portal, and eventually Bing, basically, as it later became on to be. So that was pretty good. So I suddenly found myself not having to do too much work in this quiet forum, but at the same time getting the moderators' benefits and perks and that side of things. So that worked out pretty well. Yeah.
Were you active on other forums?
I mostly stayed to Webmaster World. So there was Jim World, and then Jill Whalen's forums. I was
High rankings.
High rankings a little bit, but I left David on the high rankings forums, and I did, and I also created a site. But created site was it was more broader in that it was about website building and on other things as well as SEO, and Webmaster World felt so much like my home that I just, I stayed there really. So it was a useful place to be. I'm still a moderator. They haven't kicked me off completely.
Did you learn a lot from Webmaster World?
Yeah, undoubtedly. I mean, I had learned a lot from before from Jim World, and I think that and I did a lot of lurking on Creator Site and high rankings and Jill Whalen's forums, but I lurked there because I was scared, especially if I was going to post as myself. So and I found out a lot of people lurk, don't they? But jumping in and being part of the action is really useful, and that really helped the networking for sure. And then when PubCon decided to have one in Orlando, I decided to really splash out and get a flight to Orlando, and that for me was a massive, great big spend. And I, some of the people that were there were, clearly earning considerable amounts of money, or at least sounding like they were earning considerable amounts of money. And that was, but by the time I got there, I thought, you know what, I know a lot compared to a lot of people here. So I'm not entirely, imposter syndrome is not entirely justified. I should get a little bit more confident. And so I kind of enjoyed that because I wasn't a speaker at Orlando. But I got a lot out of it, and the people that were there, I thought, you know what, I know a fair amount. I met a lot of people, got a few customers, found out there was a conference on the way back. So I had to fly out and change in New York because it was cheaper that way. And going back, there was another conference in New York at Search Engine Strategies. So went back to New York and stopped there as well. I remember stopping. So I remember phoning back. I had a secretary at this time, so I had grown a little bit, and asked her to book me a park bench in New York, so I could stop off on there and go to the other conference. And she got me this hotel room, which was pretty close to Times Square. But it's the only hotel I've been at where not only was there no ensuite, they gave you a toilet roll in the bedroom to take to the loo, and the plastic on the they were selling by the hour. There was a grate. You had to go and give your money through a grate, and the Great American Adventure. I suspect I was the only person that didn't have a hooker in the room in the whole hotel.
Oh God. So that was your first venture to a US conference then?
Yeah. Oh, I think it was my first time going to America abroad on my own as well, because so it was pretty scary. I mean, Orlando had been scary because I mean, it's heard on other ones about the swingers conference that followed the Orlando conference. Yeah. But I had another little shock in my time as well, because I was there in Orlando, and I was sort of wanting to talk to everybody and stuff, and I thought, I've got to make sure when I go out to dinner, I go with some other people. That would be, I can't just go on my own. So I was chatting to people and stuff, and there was a couple of people, a boy and a girl. We moved out, went out of the hotel to go to I don't know, a steakhouse or whatever we're going to go to. And as we were going out, I said, "So what do you guys do?" And they said, okay, it wasn't this, but well, we're Jehovah's Witnesses," they said, or something like that. And I remember walking out of the hotel. One of them was each side of me. And I just looked around and I turned around and I walked back in. I thought, I'm in America on my own. I don't know anybody. I've heard some dodgy things about America. I'm not going off with some sect that I don't know anything about. So I walked back in and said, "Sorry, I can't do this." And then up in New York, when I'd gone back and stopped off this other conference, they were also at New York. So I was
following you.
Much larger conference, and they came up to me and said, "What did we do wrong?" I said, I'm sorry, but I didn't know what was happening, and I just got scared." So embarrassing.
And now they're the CEO.
So I apologize to all Jehovah's Witnesses out there, or whichever the Seventh-day Adventists or whatever it was, but I was confused and just played it safe.
I love the story about.
Is that the kind of story you want on SEO Pioneers?
Yeah. You've seen the other episodes, right?
Yeah.
So how do you think that, did you think that actively investing in the networking and, you know, investing in your personal brand, that really started to pay off?
No doubt, absolutely no doubt about it at all. Because when Majestic came along, the way that all started was that so Yahoo Site Explorer was the only real way to get backlink information. And Tim Mayer and the guys at Yahoo had set it up pretty much to piss off Google and to undermine Google, I think, you know, and we were all using that data. Then this other little tool came out that was in kind of a beta kind of mode. And so I tried it one day, and it was so badly marketed. Basically, I had to pay them £10, and they would give me £10 worth of backlink data, which I could choose, and then the money stopped and stuff. And so I thought, oh, that's great. Okay, right. Well, I'll spend £10. Tried to get my backlink data for a site. It broke. It just said error 500 response. And so off on the support tickets, assuming that this was just another .com, you know, multi-million-pound organization. I got this email back from this guy who had clearly built the whole damn thing and saying, "Awfully sorry, fixed it. It all works now, and here's another £50 worth of credits for your troubles." And I thought, well, okay, it's a smaller organization than I thought. And then I looked at it, and they weren't using the Yahoo API. They actually had crawled the internet to find all the backlink information, because it's, you know, and I thought, you know what? I know everybody that needs this product. So so I invited the founder of Majestic. I'm not the founder of Majestic at all. Down to business travel, business travel, to I think it's a search engine strategies in the Business Design Center by then, and said, you know, I'll introduce you to a few people, and within about 15 minutes of this guy coming down, I'd introduce him to Danny Sullivan and to Brett Tabker was there, Dave Naylor was there. There was, I think Matt Cutts was around as well. You know, so I'd gone through a bunch of people that he knew, but he never thought he'd, you know, get in contact with. And at the end of that meeting, it was fairly obvious that I would really like to push Majestic. And so what I wanted was, you know, to get involved with Majestic, or Majestic 12, as it was called at the time, and with Alex. But Alex didn't have any money, so Receptional, he couldn't just pay Receptional cash. So he came up with deals and stuff, and that eventually ended up, you know, me being, you know, the marketing director of Majestic after about 12 months of, playing around with some agreements and stuff as to how we were going to play it. But clearly I was willing to do it for the gamble. And I'm really glad I did. It worked well for me. So if Majestic hadn't have done very well, so my receptional colleagues were quite skeptical about it, actually, because they had some decent clients. There's some big clients out there that were giving us reasonably good amounts of money. We were about 20 people as an agency side. And I wanted to work with this guy who didn't have any employees and was trying to run a search engine from his living room. But I had faith in it, so they kind of let me go with it, really. But ultimately that meant, I moved away from my own agency and into Receptional, really. And eventually we did a management buyout at Receptional. So, Justin and the team took it over and run it, and anything I say now doesn't have any sway with Receptional whatsoever, because I'm not even a shareholder.
What year was it that you joined Majestic?
So I think we became an item, so to speak, in probably 2007, 2008. And then about 2009, I became full-time at Majestic. So I was for a couple of years, effectively, Receptional was the internet, the sole internet marketing partner before they sort of changed all around a bit of Majestic. So that was just a kind of dynamic change, really. But by 2009, I was working up in Birmingham all the time, which is where Majestic's based. And by this stage, Reception was becoming beginning to be a distant memory for me. Not that it was, they were moving their own way. So, but I think in 2007, I'm just having a look at awards. I haven't got the ones up here. They think the first award we got was an e-consultancy award in 2007. So we must have been well up and running by then. But yeah, so I'd say 2007.
Just going backwards. So before you joined Majestic, what, how much investigation had you and prominence were you putting into links, which then led you to recognize just what Majestic had?
Loads. I mean, links were a pretty big part of my understanding of certainly the Google algorithm. I got to grips with PageRank reasonably early on. I have to say I got a lot of help from, I think it was a post by Aaron Wall, SEO book, who it may not have been, memory kind of fades, but somebody explained PageRank really well. I mean, if he showed me the maths, I kind of went, well, what's that? But once I really understood it, life became a lot easier. So I knew the difference between good links and bad links. So I was well into links before I got involved in Majestic. Of course, it was really easy in the early days to get links. You could press this button on Top Dog and register with 2,000 search engines or directories. You didn't know what they all were, but they all kind of worked. Or Web Position Gold was a big tool I used, and that had a submission service as well. I noticed that on a couple of the other guides have mentioned Web Position Gold, and the great thing about Orlando is I think that's when they got blueline.jpg, which is basically if you wanted to create pages, they would create your own page for you on Web Position Gold, and it was kind of all these doorway pages, but they used this line, this image called blueline.jpg, and as soon as I saw that, I thought that's dodgy because it's easy to see that. You could just, if I was a search engine, I could see every web page that had that blueline.jpg. But in the advanced settings, you could change the name of that file. So that was great. So I did that. So I didn't get done by didn't get done by the same update that everybody else got done by, because I changed that line. But also I most of the times when I hadn't created a doorway page in that way anyway, I'd created a proper doorway page. But when I did create a doorway page, I'd made sure I got rid of that glueline.jpg, because it just looked like a massive, great big red flag to me. So that was good. Anyway, but the link stuff, yeah. So I was well into the link stuff, and enjoying it, because I was enjoying it in a bit of an Eric Ward kind of way, in that I was seeing links as a good channel for business. So I wasn't really getting overly concerned on, link counts. I was getting concerned about, why people travel around and click around the internet, and how could I use a link into my website as a way of increasing decreasing my need for search engines, to be honest with you. My reliance on search engines. The more that Google became 100% of the market, the more important it became to have people coming to your website from other places than Google. Now, in order to come to you from another place other than Google, they've got to click on a link, right? So links became important for more than just the PageRank algorithm. They became important to out-survive Google.
At what point were you connecting, putting all this together, and then also connecting that relevancy was an important factor for links as well? Was this pre-Majestic as well?
No, to be honest with you, that was a little bit of chicken and egg. I mean, Majestic started to come up with this concept of topical TrustFlow, and a lot of that thought process came from Majestic's product, and because probably I kind of knew that we were working on this product probably a year before topical TrustFlow came out, because it was a big thing to work on, where we kind of tried to work out that a link from a travel website had different underlying intent to a link from a finance website, and it said a different thing about the page that it was linking to. And having come up with a technology that could do that, you then had to come up with a marketing philosophy around why you would want to do that. Unfortunately, Google had also been muting this concept of topical PageRank without explaining it very much. So I just had to assume that it was an extension of what we were thinking as well. So contextually relevant linking was a match between me thinking, well, if Google didn't exist, how would I get my traffic with other links? And obviously then you want relevant links. There's no point in getting irrelevant links. But also you could start seeing that irrelevant links could potentially harm your brand. And you could see that in the maths. So at least with topical TrustFlow, you could sit there and see that, nowadays it's kind of, I use the idea of a Mustang, and is a Mustang, are you a horse site or are you a car site? But there were plenty of examples way back in the day where I was using those kind of antonyms, if you like, or two words that sound the same and they're completely different things. And I also learned it right from the start, I suppose, by a big mistake that I made with Dixon Jones as a name. So I was lucky enough, and right in the start, to own DixonJones.com, but I only did that because a famous architects company owned DixonJones.co.uk, but they didn't buy the .com, so I bought the .com. Anyway, famously for an SEO, I could never get to number one for the phrase Dixon Jones. And it's not a difficult phrase, right? There can only be two people who really cared. And the other one was a Flash-based website, and they had the .co.uk. It was really embarrassing. But they had designed the Royal Opera House. There's a massive, impressive history of 200 years of this architect company. Not 200 years, but anyway, a sort of long history for this company. And regardless of the fact that they had a Flash-based website, they were a more significant source of information. And I made the mistake right at the start of using the word architects all over my homepage to try and get, number one for the phrase Dixon Jones, because Dixon Jones, the architects had then. So I wanted to try to jump in on that. And I buggered it up completely for a long, long time. I confused myself, the search engines, my customers, because I was just trying to copy the words that were on the competitor's page, and not understanding that I should be differentiating between, the last thing I should be using is the word architects on Dixon Jones, the SEO's page. It took me forever to find out and figure it out. And I was sort of blaming, I was blaming Google with SEO, about SEO conspiracy paranoia in my head for a long, long time. And then when Majestic came out with a search engine, because they have one, the architects also won on that one as well, which is really annoying because I knew how that one works. It's so the context and the contextual linking came because I had decided that this branding was important, and you had to associate yourself with your product, your brand with your product and your vertical, and then that combined with this idea of topical TrustFlow really started to highlight that it was important to differentiate yourself on the internet, not try and suck in all the information, all the visitors that you could. You had to try and suck in just the right visitors, and that changed the game, and it's changed the game forever, I think, for me.
When you started at Majestic, how much input did you have? Any input into the tool and the development of the tool?
Yeah, absolutely. So I never, at the end of the day, if you're not the programmer, you're out. But there was a lot of input in the early days of, I would say, just because we're a very small team, and I was the only one that was going out into the marketplace to find out what the customers wanted. So I could help with that part of things. I couldn't help with the underlying technology and approach, I suppose, because that was developer driven. So our business model was really we've got this innovation, we're developing this innovation. Who can we sell it to, I suppose? And I happen to be the person that had an affinity with the people that we could sell it to, rather than, we're going to wake up and decide that we're going to build for the SEO community. It's the SEO community that wanted this link graph, because the link graph could have plenty of other uses. I talked in Brighton last year about all the other ways in which you can use link data apart from SEO, and you can use it for all sorts of things. But it's the SEO industry that really had a ready-to-go market for it, which is why Majestic became an SEO tool.
What other industries do you think it has application for?
Well, it's good because you got the history going back for a long period of time, so you can it leaves fingerprints, so you can see web pages that don't exist anymore based on the links that are linking to those dead pages. Okay, you might have 301s already in there, but if you've got that information, then you can see the context in which people used to like things, and that goes to say interesting things. You can use that to for evidence of copyrights, for example. Certainly the link data is used for the domain name industry, which is, maybe you may decide it's closely associated with the SEO industry, but nevertheless, it's a currency. I mean, I would suppose Moz has even more. Moz's ranking systems, domain rank or whatever. It's a unit of currency for evaluating websites. Being able to do that at the page level is pretty valuable as well. So you've got this concept of it's a currency. It's got historical information. You can use that as well to start spotting trends. So somebody could take the APIs from Majestic or from other link data sources and use it as a proxy for traffic, and use that to predict the future. Because a link will precede the traffic. So if there's 1,000 links of meaning going into a particular web page, you can expect that, you know, sooner or later there's going to be the impact of whatever those extra people going to that website are going to do. So you can use it to predict the future as well as the past.
When you first came across Majestic, what was it about the tool that you saw in it that really
absolutely appealed? So when you dug into it, this it's really that Alex had built this himself. I mean, he had crawled the web. He was crawling billions of web pages a day from his bedroom, and that kind of level of innovation is amazing. And I just knew that I had the customers that he would never want to go to. I mean, he never will want to go and talk to any customers out there, you know. And it's just, I think it was a good fit. I could get to the market, but I couldn't create the product. He could create the product, but couldn't get to the market. I'd say too, I'm being very unfair to Steve here, because there were three of us at the director level, not two. And Steve was that gel that stuck together between Alex's one extreme and my other extreme, because we were so far apart, sort of as people, I suppose, different skill sets, and then running that team in the middle is all Steve. And he had to be the geek transposer. Is that a word? No, I should make that up.
Yeah. So what point did you begin to develop ideas about that Google was building a knowledge graph?
2014, I think. So it was basically when Google bought MetaWeb, I kind of woke up, and I'd missed Freebase. I had seen Freebase. I hadn't quite realized that, and it's really annoying because I never got an entity in Freebase. That was the easiest way for an SEO to get an entity. You could just go and register it. So I get really annoyed by Bill Hartzer, who's one of Majestic's ambassadors, because he had a Freebase ID and I didn't, which means he became an entity much earlier than I did. It's really annoying. But anyway, when Google bought Freebase for what sounded like an awful lot of money, I thought, that's not PageRank, and why? And I don't understand. And Bill Slowski's kind of mooting entities, and there's other words out there, and I've got to figure out why they did this, because that's too much money to just spend, and, you know, on a whim. I know they're rich, but it just, presumably someone has to wake up and think, because Freebase had no way of making money. So Freebase, when I, you know, delved into it, was just a massive database. So it was basically in Carter with a little less flair. So I would say that one of the biggest mistakes that Microsoft ever made was dumping in Carter, because basically that was a massive, great big knowledge graph. And so I then started to try and work out how Freebase was getting embedded into Google's thought processes. And it took me a long time to really understand it. And I remember doing a presentation at PubCon, and you know, trying to, and I found this town in Vegas. It was PubCon in Vegas, and I found this town in Nevada with apparently, according to Google, a population of 2,800 or something, and then a satellite map finding that it was, frankly, it was I don't know, it was lying. It was completely wrong, and starting to understand, well, if the world is going to get organized in entities, then how can we as SEOs use that to our advantage? Because what was coming out was all these rich snippets and things where, you know, flights were coming up on the screen and you couldn't click on the, you know, you were losing you felt as an SEO that you were losing your traffic to Google Answers, and they were just answering questions all over the place. And for about 5 minutes, I, waved the flag and said, this is wrong, this is terrible, and then I thought, well, that's not going to get me very far. What I need to do is understand how businesses can benefit from that, because at the same time, other channels were coming out, Facebook and Twitters and all these other things were out there, and you couldn't, those weren't your websites either. So people were having conversations away from your website where they didn't have where you had control. So you had to get into the actual conversation rather than just having the objective of getting people to your website. You had to be able to sell your product potentially without anybody even going to your website. And that started my thought processes for entities and how I understood entities, but B, how you could market in that world and how you can market in that environment. And that philosophy, I think, is going to be the same with ChatGPT and OpenAI, really. It's how can you get your brand in the answers? If you say, I want to, what's the best vacuum cleaner? You want your brand to be in there if you're Dyson or Shark. That's going to be the game plan, really. You need to, and if you can get into that when people are asking more generic questions of those machines, and you get your brand in there, then you can win. But if you can't, if your brand isn't strong enough to stand as a so that people are going to buy your product regardless of where they found you, then you're going to have problems. And also, the SEO industry is not going to survive if they can't find a better way of dealing in those sort of more esoteric environments that are not directly related to your website.
How do you think that so chatbots, everybody's experimenting with them a lot at the moment, and what it looks like at the moment is people are going to be having personal assistant butlers personal assistants that they will be using them on a continual basis. How do you think that is actually going to connect with what we currently and historically have known as search? Do you think we'll still have search and this of your butler will be separate, or how integrated do you think they will be?
I don't know. I think that it's got a long way to play out, but clearly, if you go look science fiction wise, I think you have to go and have a look at the Borg as the ultimate endpoint for humanity in this scenario. And it's not that, so if you're not a Star Trek-y person, then the Borg are kind of all these things that are all connected to a hive, and they're all sort of centrally managed by the machine. But these Borgs can operate independently, but they choose not to. If you look in politics for a similar analogy, I would say, communism is a similar analogy. So you got to a point where you have to work within the operating system that's dictated to you. And I don't think it's any different if you work for a large organization either. You've got to work within the rules that are put down to you. So what I don't like about it all is that it's restricting my freedom of choice, because I am going to have to work within the rules that are put there. And now I've got machines putting rules in, but they may be unwritten rules, but they're not unwritten rules, because when you want to, when you've lost your credit card, you've got to phone a machine. Everything is turning into talking to the machines, and somebody set up the machine to do something for you. It's a very horrible situation to be in. At the same time, it's the way it's going, and in order to survive in that, if I'm a marketing person, I need to understand how I can influence that machine. So I guess I'm becoming a political operative for machine learning. That's what I'm doing.
Is this why you think entities will be so important? Because they're moving forwards as well, because they are going to be feeding into.
I think entities. I think entities have become incredibly intrinsic to the way in which most algorithms now are starting to work. I mean, it makes so much sense to see to see the world. I look at it. I can look at a page of page of content now, and all I can see is, entity. That's my. I just sit there and say, oh, okay, that's breaking down into all these entities, and an entity is just a Wikipedia article, really. So it's just these are all the concepts that are on this page in this order, and all you need to do is to turn those entities into ID numbers in a database, and you've now got a fingerprint for every piece of content, and every concept that you're talking about is going to be talking about the same entities, maybe in slightly different orders, but basically those numbers then are a short form way of describing any set of Shakespeare. Fine, off you go. This there, so it scales so much better than trying to do a search engine based around keywords or n-grams or other methodologies. And it's so much more versatile because an item, so an iPhone, well, take the Eiffel Tower. The Eiffel Tower is the Eiffel Tower, regardless of which language, which character set you use it that you describe it with. Or a horse is the same regardless of the character set or the language that you use, or whether you're using slang. It doesn't matter what you use to describe that thing called a horse. It's a horse. So everything then stems from that, because now you can just do your maths if you're a Google or a Bing or a Inlinks even in one language, and it's a language of numbers, and then you can translate it back to any other languages afterwards, and that's actually becomes trivial. It wasn't trivial 20 years ago, but now that's trivial compared to understanding the underlying concepts, which can be done in numbers. So I think that this idea of moving the world's information into sort of a neural net of ideas just made so much sense, and I think there's a huge amount of gravity behind and capital gone behind those ideas, and they're turning out to be okay. I wouldn't say that Google's search results are better now than they were 10 years ago. I think in many ways they're worse in the core results, but surrounding that, there's so much more richness with all the universal sort of content that for the users, it's a much more pleasant experience. But unfortunately, it becomes harder in that world to differentiate yourself. The way to do it is through making sure that your entity or your brand is so closely aligned to the entities that are relevant to your marketplace, that you almost appear in that conversation of numbers of ideas. You can't mention can't mention Hoovers without Dysons, but Hoover and Dyson is neither of those are a vacuum cleaner. They are both brands that are so closely associated that I use both when describing a vacuum cleaner. That's what I want to do for brands, or that's what brands need to strive to do, because then we get into our customers' conversations, and only our customers' conversations. So if you're not our customer, you probably wouldn't use the word. But if you are our customer, and it doesn't matter what the product is, but if you are if you want your customers to use your word as a verb, and that is probably the succinctest way of describing entity SEO.
I certainly find it very interesting with how you suggest when you're saying entities, it becomes very much then a global, it's language agnostic.
Yes.
And you can see now with Google's ambition to opening up into all markets globally, and obviously expanding and becoming sort of a one global. So to have an entity that would be the same throughout all languages certainly is very future thinking, future forward, isn't it?
It is and it isn't, because a horse has always been a horse, regardless of what language you used it. So as human beings, we've always looked at a house and known it's a house. Doesn't matter whether we don't speak English or not. We know a house is a house. We just use a different label for it. So these things are, these words that we use are just labels for the underlying thing. And that's always been the way, I think. So it's future thinking compared to PageRank, but it's not future thinking when you think about how the human brain works.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking it's future thinking in terms of search terms, But yeah, absolutely. It's interesting how it is now going back and reverting to, as you say, looking at the underlying and a very, very much more natural replication of how the brain works, which is very interesting.
We find, I mean, at Inlinks anyway, we find the hardest part is actually that first bit of being able to read a page of text and then understand the underlying concept. So we can work in sort of the Latin alphabet. So Inlinks works pretty well in English, French, German, Spanish, Italian. We have got no idea how to do it in Chinese because the sentence structure is completely different. It's it's a different our natural language processing algorithm doesn't work so well. So we could, in theory, translate it into English first using a machine translation and then do that. That's fine. And actually that does work for us understanding and creating a knowledge graph for a piece of content. It doesn't help when we then try and then do internal linking back to those entities. So we can't necessarily say, oh, this page is about this entity. We know these entities are on there. We don't quite get it right. But on the whole, yeah, it's much easier to do SEO, to be a search engine in all languages, I think, using entities than it is using sort of old style n-grams and those kind of ideas. And you create one thing and you can pretty much launch it in any language, I would imagine, for most things. So they'll love it. And also the other thing that I think a search engine loves, and I'm not a Google, but the thing that they must find a relief in this paradigm of using entities is that the number of web pages, it's going to be even more with ChatGPT, OpenAI and ChatGPT, the number of web pages that are getting created every day is loads. A lot.
Loads.
So the absolute number of pages on the internet is going up, probably still logarithmically, certainly, still going like that. Whereas the number of concepts in the world is pretty much the same. Okay, somebody will invent something, it'll go up, and things, but the number of concepts is the same. So if you organize the world's information by the number of pages on the internet, then you're going to have to keep on building more and more and more and more machines. If you organize the world's information by the number of ideas in the world, then frankly, all of those pages that get created only need to actually be a reference when they're going to come back in the search results. So you're not going to need most of those. So turn out crap, it's never even going to make it into the system. Is there any new information here? No. Okay, fine. We'll come back when there is. So links may come back for the discovery part of it, or for it's good enough now to be cited as a resource. But if it hasn't got any new information, it won't even get into the system. But you're not losing any information or not losing much information by keeping those pages, the crappy pages, completely out of the index. As long as you've got a map of the world that's accurate, and your algorithm can pick up new ideas in those pages, then it's only going to start bringing in pages that add new ideas to the knowledge graph. So I think it scales better. I think a knowledge-based approach, entity-based approach to the world's information scales better than a how many pages on the internet based approach.
Yeah, I can see that, and it's obviously much more economical as well.
It's got to be, hasn't it? I mean, I know they're talking hundreds of billions, but yeah, it's got to be.
Yeah. When did you? What was the reason you actually left Majestic? And
I got old. I got old and tired. I needed a break. I'd been there about 10 years. I needed a break, and the guys were really nice to me. I said, they said, well, they gave me a year's sort of gardening leave, really, where I could calm down and just relax. But I stayed involved as a sort of global brand ambassador role, which was really nice of them, but I didn't have to get involved in the heavy lifting of decision making and things. So I guess 10 years it appears is about my limit for being in a company. Every 10 years or so, I've got to move. So pull back. I just, I wasn't adding too much to the company. And there's a Majestic also put me through an MBA, so thank you very much, Majestic. And one of the things that came out of the MBA was the businesses, people that are involved in businesses up to 20 people, is one level of business. As the business grows beyond that, then those founders then have some very difficult decisions to make, because just at the point at which you're suddenly finding that there's plenty of cash in the bank for you and there's cash flow and it's okay, is the day that you don't want anything to change anymore. But it's also the time that all those people that had helped you with those 20 people want to go and turn the world into something completely different. So they want to grow at the point at which people lower in an organization might want to the originators of the organization might want to say, oh, I just don't want anybody to have any decisions now. We just want to carry on. And I think that dichotomy is a change in management style at that point. And I'm not good at it. This is another reason why I don't want to ever work in a large organization, unless you can put me in a satellite operation where I'm reasonably in control of my 6 to 10 people, then I'm okay. But if you ask me to start running an organization with 50 people in it, you have to question whether I've got much experience in that, because every business I've set up may have turned into a fairly good, substantial business, but at some point you should probably kick Dixon off of the out of the boat. So hopefully that will happen with Inlinks as well, and we'll get up to about 20 people, and we'll make somebody else a CEO, and I can maybe hang around as waving the flag for a few years, and then I can gracefully dissipate.
How long have you been at Inlinks?
We started in we've 4 or 5 years already. So I think we started just before COVID. So when did COVID start properly?
2020. March.
So we started in
2019.
Yeah. So 2019. So the limited company was formed in August 2019, and then we got the website out around about November of that year, and then COVID hit, which was all very interesting. It actually turned out really well for me because I am definitely a co-founder of Inlinks, because so Fred had spent 7 years building this thing before I met him, but then so had Alex at Majestic. So I've learned that the best thing for a marketing person to do in this on the world of digital. In the world of digital is make sure that the programmers have more shares than you do. That's kind of the trick for me, because then they don't leave. And developers leaving is what brings down pretty much every organization that I've seen. So you don't want the developers leaving. So I'm the investor in Inlinks, and that meant that I ended up being the CEO as well. I thought I was going to be the CMO. I thought I was going to be the marketing director. I hadn't really quite worked it all out that, there's only me and Fred at the time. And Fred doesn't want to be managing director. That's the last thing he wanted. So my job at Inlinks was just at the start, and still is to a large extent, make sure that Fred can program. So take every other headache away from him. So I can build the organization out, but the whole objective is to keep Fred, and now Fred and his development team, focused on development and out of the politics and the marketing and the stuff that gets in the head of developers.
So,
don't know what that. Did that answer your question? Probably not.
Yes, yeah. So I was just calculating that you've got to 2029 before you'll move on to something else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I kind of want to but I'm getting older and wiser. So now I take Fridays off. I don't work on Fridays. I'm not out to try and Well, yeah, I'm trying to just make sure I don't burn out quite as quickly as I'm getting 10 years is a long time to burn out, I suppose, but I'm taking life a little bit easier. I'm older, I'm wiser, and need to go and walk in the hills a bit more. So Fridays does that for me.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to get to that point in a few years.
It's nice. It's nice, but when you do it, you suddenly find out. So if you go too far over the edge and decide that you just want to stop, that's really bad. So when I stopped working day to day at Majestic, and thinking I was retiring, about 2 months into that, my wife Marie just said, Dixon, you see that house on the edge of the village? Can we go and get that one? And I said, I can't afford that one. She said, I know. So that was that was it. That was my my signal to get out from under her feet and go and do the whole damn thing again. So maybe retirement is not for me.
No,
after all,
me neither. So looking back to when you started out in 95 with your murder mystery gig. Oh, by the way, I have to ask you this. Do you regret not buying murdermystery.com?
Probably, because it was probably only about £100. So probably I would have been okay. But now it seems to have gone full circle. Now I think a domain name is pretty well, the only thing that's really important about a domain name is that you can't spell it wrong. That's the most important thing. If you can have the .com and you can't misspell it, those are the two important things. Yeah, I guess I could probably have done quite a lot with murdermystery.com. Yeah.
But going back to 95, and do you think looking forwards now, well, obviously, sorry, looking back now, but if you went back to 95, did you think that your trajectory would have taken the same path as it has? Or are you quite happy with the fact that you've just gone from a series of businesses?
I think I don't think I'm pretty happy. I think I stuck with most businesses. I had a few other trials and failures along the way, but none of the failures were critical, I suppose. I never got VC money in where it wasn't needed, or I never took huge amounts of cash. I was always a big believer in the British shopkeepers approach. It's fine if you make 50 pence in a day. It's terrible if you lose 50 pence in a day. Whether that 50% turns into 50 million is secondary to the fact that you've got to make a profit before you can make more profits. And I never understood the West Coast of America VC kind of approach to doing business, where it didn't seem to matter whether you made a profit or not. It was just whether you had enough cash, and there was no consideration as to whose cash it was. Was it your cash? Was it the company's profits, or was it a VC's cash, or your suppliers from a credit? I don't know. I didn't understand any of that. So I'm pretty glad that I never went down the VC route in a big way. So I'm happy with where I've got. I've got a nice biggish house, a Mustang car. It's good, and a little orange car as well, kit car. So so that's all I need.
Would you say that do you love search? Are you all about search, or are you all about business?
I am about search, but I think that search, I think most SEOs are way too narrow in what they understand search to be. I mean, search is very much about a user having a problem and trying to find a person having a problem and you having a solution. And it's that journey from that person having that problem to finding you as a solution. And I think it should take into account, how somebody learns through Facebook friends, or how they learn through Twitter, or how they learn through brand advertising, and all those other methodologies. I think that search engine optimization is also about Facebook optimization. It's about, OpenAI optimization. It's about all of these other digital, in particular, channels to market. But I think that most SEOs get so hung up on just your content on your page, and not about the wider implications of that. And you see SEOs always on Twitter. We all do it, including me, going and saying, hey, my customer has just changed this website without telling me, and stuff like that. Well, you lost your battle as an SEO a long time before that happened, frankly, because you probably shouldn't have called yourself an SEO. You should have called yourself an internet marketing consultant. And maybe that's our biggest mistake. SEOs should call themselves internet marketing consultants, not SEOs, because we narrow ourselves too much, and our game should be about understanding that interplay between different routes to market. So yes, that's where the enterprise comes in.
I think probably about time to wrap up now. We've been talking for quite a while. Just some little bit of information I found that's a little bit random. Is it true you've visited Buckingham Palace twice?
I did, yes. Majestic won 2 Queen's Awards for industry. One for innovation, and then the second year we won it for export, because most of Majestic's sales are overseas. And the Queen's Award, you get to go to Buckingham Palace, and yes, the Queen's there, but a lot of other members of the royal family. And yeah, special day for sure. I didn't talk to the Queen. I've had a telling off from Princess Anne, and also talking to Princess Michael of Kent. So I spent a lot of time talking to Princess Michael of Kent. I'll tell you about the telling off by Princess Anne, because it's more interesting. It was the same award, but when we won the export award, we also went to the internet export, the industry of export conference, to celebrate the people that won the export award for the Queen's Award. Anyway, Princess Anne was there. And she was basically there, and I was in one of those line outs where I was kind of the royal line out, and so I got to the front of the queue because I thought that would be a good thing to do. I'm quite glad I did, really, because it turned out to take quite a long time to get through the queue. Anyway, so she came up, and I knew she was going to ask me, so what do you do? And I had to come up with a snappy answer. So I was ready, and she did. She came up, and they was introduced. And so, what do you do, Majestic? I said, well, we're kind of like a scrappy Google. And without missing a beat, she said, you are not a scrappy Google. You're a jewel in the British Empire's crown, or something like that. It's a jewel in the British crown. And I thought, you know exactly why you're here. And I've just been, smacked by royalty, really, smacked down by royalty, and quite rightly too. So I'm not a scrappy Google. We're a search engine in our own right.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Majestic is one of the most used tools. It's yeah,
I think it's still got a lot of potential, but I don't have much say in it today. So let's let's hope so.
I think it's up there as one of the most well-respected foundational tools in SEO for sure.
Well, it definitely was built from first principles. I was certainly the guys built the thing. I've seen them build the servers.
Well, Dixon, we've obviously been talking for quite a while now, and I guess it's probably about time to wrap up. So, unless
look, thank you ever so much for the invitation. I've really enjoyed the chat. I'm sure you're going to have to cut, half of this, but anyway, please, thank you very much for having me on. I really have enjoyed it.
It's an absolute pleasure, Dixon, and thank you for being one of my pioneers.